again and expecting a different result. And all I'm saying is that there's different business models that you can use. There's different platforms that you can operate under that may sound foreign to you, that may sound a little scary. I don't know if I can get investors. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can get that. But what I can tell you is that everything's doable if you think it's doable. Special note, we have changed the agenda a little bit today. Phil Gemmett from Breakwater Equity is speaking in the morning rather than the afternoon. Thank you, Julie, for allowing us to make that change. AJ Poulin from the mortgage office, who's speaking on servicing funds, is going to speak in the afternoon. And the way we sold that was, hey, we need a really good speaker here, would you switch? Hey, we need a really good speaker here, would you switch? They both bought it, and we made that switch. But they're both old friends, they're team players, and I'm really proud to have both of them with us. Today's the first time that George Blackburn has spoke with us as a featured speaker. Many of you may be familiar with George. He owns C Loans, which is probably the oldest and biggest portal on the web. Many I know that have done business with George. I mean, George is the real deal. George has one of those kind of business models. It's real simple. You got a deal, you can't get funded, send it to George. You don't have to do anything with it. George will, work on the deal. He'll send it out to, his private investors and so forth. You get an eighth of a point. Just, real simple. So as George says, you can earn money while you sleep. George is not here to talk about his C Loans or Blackburn and Sons, but he is here to talk about raising capital. It's going to be a very fast presentation because we did cover it a lot, but I want George to speak only because of who he is. I want you to be able to see George. We're videotaping it. It's an honor for me to actually have George Blackburn, featured speaker at our event. George and I been talking about doing stuff together for years, and it was just the last event we finally said, "Hi, George, just get on the damn plane and come on out." He's all right, okay, all right. And so please give a very warm welcome to Mr. George Blackburn III from C Loans.
Now, don't worry if when you go out to do your initial money raise that you're not raising very much money. I remember I actually got my permit approved by the Department of Corporation so I could publicly advertise. And I had hallucinations of grandeur. And I thought, I wouldn't break escrow until I, had $5 million. I ended up going back to the Department of Corporations, and they were actually very kind to us. And they let me break escrow with $150,000. I'm now a $50 million shop. All right, so don't be afraid to break escrow, even if your initial capitalization is rather modest. Okay, Julie? Okay. Where are you going to find these guys? You'd be amazed that if you're dealing in real estate, how often you meet high net worth individuals. I mean, let's face it, po folks do not own office towers. Okay? They don't own huge shopping centers. The people that you're meeting every single day in the course of business as a commercial real estate broker, or even a residential real estate broker, or a mortgage broker, or better yet, a commercial mortgage broker. I've often said there is no better way to meet high net worth individuals than to be a commercial mortgage broker. So the people that you're meeting every day are going to be your potential investors. And I want to talk to you about something called legitimacy. It's one thing to be going out to some complete stranger trying to solicit him to invest in a blind pool where you pick the investments that go into the pool. Good luck with that. Okay? But if you have a prior existing business relationship, regardless of whether or not you sold his building for him, or regardless of whether or not he accepted the offer you brought on his building, or maybe you just refinanced the guy's home, or maybe you worked on a commercial mortgage loan for him, and unfortunately, after countless hours of work, every bank in town insisted on turning the deal down. He still knows you, appreciates you, has had a taste of you, knows that you're a good, honest, hardworking kind of guy, and he's going to view you with much more legitimacy. So try and make these initial 300 people that already know you. In fact, legally you have to do that, but also from a business point of view, you'll find will help a lot. Okay, we've already talked about prior borrowers. This is one of my favorite, devious. Whenever I would get a preliminary report, I love, in California we call them preliminary reports. For you folks outside of the state of California, your states might call them title commitments. Basically, it's the same thing. And a lot of times, you will find private mortgage investors listed right, and their addresses, especially if they're servicing the deals themselves, right on the preliminary title report. I mean, there's nothing to keep you from Googling them, seeing if you can't get a number, all right, and maybe somehow trying to touch bases with these people. Now, you have to be careful. You cannot send out a general solicitation. But if there's a wealthy person that you're trying to meet, you're allowed to call them in person and talk to them on the phone. Now, this goes back to what Leonard said earlier. Just because a guy has never invested in mortgages before doesn't mean that he's not a great potential trust deed or mortgage investor. An investor is an investor. They want their return. So just because the guy's prior investing experience might have been in stocks, or it might have been in buying and managing apartment buildings, doesn't mean that he wouldn't be extremely interested in hearing about your mortgage investment opportunities. Remember, all these guys have IRAs. And they got hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, in these IRAs. And, you know, there's only so much money that anybody's willing to commit their IRA, let's say, to a direct real estate investment or to stocks. They're going to trying to balance their portfolio. So just because a guy has never invested in trust deeds or mortgages before doesn't mean that he's not a terrific potential client. Okay, when you start out, I strongly recommend that you start doing small loans. Sure, we all want to do $1 million loans, knock off 5 or 6 of those a month. We all want to get to that point. But when you're first getting started, start with small loans. You'll find a number of potential benefits from that. First of all, because the loan is so small, mortgage brokers are not going to mess around with a $75,000 to $100,000 loan. They don't want to work on deals that small. There's no money in it. They're only going to make 1 point. What are they going to make? 1 point on $75,000. They're going to make $750 if the deal closes. And we all know the fallout ratio is horrendous. So for one thing, you have less competition. And here's another reason. There are a lot of very wealthy people that own properties free and clear that have a temporary need for dough. Sometimes you can get a deal that's only 22% loan to value, but you got it because you were willing to do a loan that small. But there's another far more important reason why you want to start with small loans. Oh, by the way, I just remember this joke. Pay attention to the colors here. What did the green grape say to the purple grape? Breathe, breathe. We're all going to make mistakes. And as I taught we discovered a nice little mistake we made in the office the other day, and I'm training my sons in the business, and I said, don't try and hide it from the investors. Don't come up with this big song and dance how the wind was blowing from the north and the polar bear was coming from the south. And no, you just tell the investors, we probably could have done a better job on this, but here's exactly where we stand. Here's what we propose to do about it. Don't try and sweep problems into the closet. Be candid about them. And your investors will appreciate it. And as long as you're well-intentioned, things seem to work out. But a mistake on a $75,000 loan is a lot easier to clean up than a mistake on a $750,000 loan or a $7.5 million loan. So start small. You're going to make some mistakes in the early years, and if it's a small deal, many times you can help clean it up yourself. Okay. When you're first starting out, the last thing in the world you need is an early loan to go bad. That could really get disastrous because people are going to want to see, can you show me some examples of the loans in the fund? And if you have to drag out a loan that's already a first payment default or something like that, good luck with growing that fund. You cannot afford any mistakes in the early year or so. So the way you handle that situation, the way you cherry pick, the way you get deals that are just indescribably delicious, to quote a candy or something, is to do deals for no points. And you're going, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to be making 5 points. You are. Patience. Patience. But in the early years, your first 20 loans, charge very, very low points, excuse me. Charge low points and maybe even 0 points if that's what it takes to get a good loan. Let me give you an idea of what the reward is at the end of the tunnel. I grew my company. I reached 50 million within 7 or 8 years, and I've been working 20 hours a week for the last 15 years. $1 million a year, 2% a year in servicing, $1 million a year guaranteed coming in, plus any loan points on any new loans that we got. That was enough money for me. And I went to every one of my kids' games. I played golf with my buddies, and I enjoyed life. And that's the reward at the end of the tunnel. Was it worth doing a handful of deals for 0 points in the early years? Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is basically saying the same thing that I just said. Be patient. You're going to be rich. It just may take you 18 months before you start to make the serious money. And for the first 18 months, you won't be making money hand over fist. But you're going to be surprised. If you're earning money in servicing, how, pardon the expression, orgasmic servicing income is. There is nothing greater in the world than walking up to your controller and saying, well, how much money are we going to get in servicing this month? She goes, well, we got a couple of late payments, so we're only going to get $55,000 in servicing. I'm sorry, but that's orgasmic. So be patient. You're going to get you're going to get wealthy. You just have to do a few deals in the early years for free. And they're really not for free. You're earning the servicing fee. I cannot stress this point to you enough. Blackburn & Sons was one of the very first companies to focus almost all of its efforts on building a large servicing income. Everybody else was out to charge 0.5% for servicing, or when I started, it was very common for hard money brokers to charge 0% for servicing. A few of the more aggressive guys charged 0.5%. All my buddies fell off their chair when I told them I was earning 2% a year in servicing. But when the crash happened, there were a lot of guys out there that had when investors are all frozen up, I can guarantee you that's going to happen. You're going to have a 3 or 4 month period every 4, 5, 6 years when you cannot raise a dime. And if your servicing income is not enough to cover your absolute nut, you are toast. So it's the servicing income, silly. Yeah. Okay. All right, here we go. Surviving the first year. You know, if you have a day job, you know, let's suppose you're selling real estate, doing residential loans, brokering commercial loans, keep it. Because remember, we're not going to try and make a whole lot of points in the early year. You know, in that first year, you're going to need some money to pay your bills, just like anybody else is. Okay? So keep your day job for the first year. That's my advice. We've already talked about being a commercial mortgage broker is an absolute great way to sprawling shopping centers. Oh, property management income. Oh my goodness. Boy, am I glad that I have property management income, because, I mean, this recession was pretty brutal. When you were making, at the time, 65% equity loans on commercial properties, and commercial property falls by 40%, you're going to take back a few properties in foreclosure. Why not make property management income one more income stream to keep the wolves away? And that kind of finishes it up for me. Blackburn & Sons, anybody needs a small commercial loan, we do permanent loans. That's sort of our niche. C loans, if you're ever looking to place a commercial loan of any sort, you can go onto the portal. It's free, enter it, and then 750 lenders will compete for your deal. Thank you for your time.